Can I sue someone for a dog bite? Hi, I'm personal injury lawyer Brian O'Connor, and the answer to that question all depends on whether or not you can prove the facts and the elements that are required under New York law for injuries caused by a dog. So essentially, New York has what's called a modified version of the one bite rule. The one bite rule kind of goes back to Old English times, where owners of dogs were not held responsible unless the dog had already bitten someone in the past. So New York has really a modified version of this one bite rule. Essentially, you don't need to have proof or evidence of a prior bite, but what you do need to establish is that the dog has what we call vicious propensities. So there's some evidence that the dog in the past had shown vicious propensities. So what is a vicious propensity? It's essentially some evidence of aggressive behavior on the dog's part prior to the assault or the bite that occurred in your case. Evidence of a vicious propensity or aggressive behavior in the past would be something like a prior attack on someone else. It doesn't mean that the dog actually bit someone else, but exhibited some type of aggressive behavior. Another factor would be if there were just prior complaints about the dog. If the dog had a tendency to growl or to bare its teeth, something like that. Simply barking is not signs of a vicious propensity. All dogs will bark, but you need something that shows a little bit more evidence of an aggressive nature. Whether or not the dog is being used as a guard dog can also be evidence. One thing to note though is that simply having like a beware of dog sign in a window or on a fence is not really evidence of a vicious propensity. The other thing too is if you're injured because the dog jumps on you, we think of that in terms of being more of a playful mode of a dog. But if a dog has a history of jumping on people in the past and you end up getting injured, a dog, even not intentionally, but jumping up excitedly on someone could cause someone to fall, be injured. So if there's evidence in the past that the dog was jumping on others, then you could also have a case. And it would be considered a vicious propensity, even though it's not typically considered aggressive, but it is something that can cause an injury to someone. Obviously, if you're in an incident where you've been bitten by a dog, you want to know what you should do. First thing you really need to do is get medical attention. But you also want to ultimately get the name and contact information of the dog owner if it's available. You also want to get the dog's health records. You want to make sure that the dog is up to date on vaccines and shots. If you cannot get the dog's information, the health records, or if you don't know the dog owner's information, if you go to the hospital and you have a puncture wounds, the hospital is likely going to have you undergo a series of rabies shots. They're typically given several days apart, usually in a series of 4. If you have questions about a dog bite or what to do after a dog bite, feel free to give us a call. We handle these cases pretty frequently. Our office number is 718-948-3500, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.